So the purpose of this video is to show you how to affix a print onto a mount, which will then, in the second part of the video, I'll show you how to fix the mount onto a back before it goes into a frame. In order to do this, you need a few component parts. Firstly, you need a print. And this is printed on A3. It's obviously portrait, not landscape, and it's monochrome, not colour. This is an image that I printed from my Free Minds Coal Faces project, and I printed it at home on my Epson P600, and I printed it onto Fotospeed, natural soft, textured, bright white, with a pretty heavy stock, thick stock of 315 grams. So that's the print. And then you need the mount. This is a 40 centimetre by 50 centimetre mount, and it's supplied by Frith Company, but there are other companies in the UK that supply mounts as well. This has come pre-cut, so the aperture is pre-cut. It is quite tight for an A3 print, but I like the ice white because I think the ice white works really well on monochrome. It's my personal preference, so that's why I use it. But as you can see just from this, just laying it on here, the aperture doesn't give very much room for manoeuvre, but that's not a problem because actually with some careful measuring, which I'll show you how to do in a second, you'll actually be able to get it securely affixed. Now the other things you need for the purposes of fixing the print onto the mount, you need acid-free tape and a pair of scissors, and it's always good to get rid of any dust particles and specks using one of these. This tape is the double-sided tape, which you'll see in the second part of the video, which is what you use to fix the mounted print onto the back. So we'll start with, we need a ruler as well, and that's very important. We'll come onto the ruler in a second. You start with the image itself, and you immediately flip it over so the top is facing you. Take the acid-free tape, and I tend to do this by hand, but you can measure it out if you want, but give a generous sort of 1.5 centimetres either side. Anyway, cut this, and then the tape, half of it needs to be on the back of the print, and the other half needs not to be, because that's obviously what's going to go onto the mount. And just using your eye, just gently, very, very gently lower it onto the back of the print. But don't press too much down because it's important you don't have any air bubbles. So I start with my index finger in the middle and just work my way out, making sure there are no air bubbles, because we want that to be as smooth as possible. And then similarly on the other side, just make it as smooth as possible. So 2 index fingers in the middle, just smooth it, no air bubbles. But obviously don't press it down too hard or you'll inadvertently fix the print onto the surface you're working on. Now a common mistake people make is they think that they should do all 4 sides before putting it on a mount. And actually you should only put it on the top side and leave the other 3 free. It's important because things do move a little bit and prints do settle down and move. And you'll often notice if you've fixed tape on all 4 sides, invariably you can get a bubbling effect of the print on the mount, and we want to avoid that. So there's the print. We flip it back over, and just 2 index fingers in the middle and smooth over that way as well, but that's perfectly nice now as well. And you're not going to get the bubbling effect on the sides by only fixing tape at the very top. Right, the next thing to do is to bring in the mount itself. And what I do is I just tend to do this by eye initially, very, very gently, dropping it down and making sure that there's some leeway within the way in which the aperture is being cut. And actually that looks pretty good already, but not pressing anything down, so not fixing anything yet. So take the ruler and measure from the edge of the aperture to the edge of the picture, and that's coming in at 1.9 centimetres there. And similarly, the edge of the picture to the edge of the aperture, and that's coming in at 1.9 as well. So my eyes worked really well on that. Let me just try it down the bottom as well. 1.9 there, and 1.9 centimetres there. So that, I know from a width perspective, is absolutely fine. Now I want to make sure the height is right, and the right on both sides. So I'm going to measure actually from the edge here. It doesn't matter, you can measure from the edge of the aperture. I always find it slightly easier on the height wise to do it from the actual top of the mount itself. So the top of the mount down to the edge of the image is 6.8 centimetres on that side, on the left hand side, and on the right hand side it's coming in at 6.8 centimetres. So I've been really lucky. Sometimes I have to do a few just ever so tiny adjustments just to make sure I've got it absolutely right. But that's 6.8, that's 6.8, it looks perfect. And now what I do with the outside of my fingers, index finger and middle finger, third finger, on both sides, is just starting in the middle, both hands, just gently smooth it out like that. I then reach underneath the print, the mount. So I've got the print in my fingers, flip it over, and then I can really secure it. And again, 2 index fingers in the middle, and just smooth that as best as one possibly can, making sure there are no air pockets, air bubbles whatsoever. And that will really look fantastic, because that's now not going to move, but a little bit of breathing space there for the other 3 sides. Flip it over, and there you have the print securely fixed to the mount. So that's the first bit and the most tricky bit. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. So here's the back, and let's just move the print to one side over there, and here's the back. And for this you need the double-sided tape, and you just basically, with the double-sided tape, you do go around in all 4 corners. So you get the tape, the double-sided tape, which obviously is sticky on this side. It will be sticky on the other side, but I'll show you what to do. And you just, with your eye, unless you particularly want to, use a ruler, measure out the distance, cut it with the scissors, and then affix the double-sided tape pretty close to the top of the back, and just smooth it out from the middle. And then what you do is you do this for all 4 sides. There we go, slightly gone over. And on this side as well. So you've now got the double-sided tape along all 4 sides of the back. And then what you need to do is you need to peel this. So you get the double-sided tape, this side of the double-sided tape exposed. So let's just, it's always a bit fiddly initially just to get it going. Once you get it going, there we go, it peels off really easily. So do one, do the second side here, either using sharpish nails or maybe scissors or something, just to get the starting point of the double-sided tape. There we go. So peel it off. I like to peel it off at a 90-degree angle, so it just comes off really smoothly there. There we go, that came off pretty easily. So you've now got the back with the full double-sided tape on all 4 sides. And here's a very tricky bit that you have to do now, because you've got to get your mounted print onto the back. And you've only got one shot at this really. And the way I do it actually, it works for me, is I bring them up like this together and start to line them up. So you want a nice flat surface, line them up as best as possible without squeezing, because once you do the final pressing, you've kind of gone beyond the point of no return. So just very gently, making sure that, there we go, that they're aligned. Now some people might do this using a set square or something like that. I just tend to use the table I've got. That's beginning to look very good. That's nice and tight. And then you just go around there. Just smooth it again with the back of your hand. Just make sure there's no so it's nice and smooth. It's perfect. Gives a nice solidity to the print. Means you can't damage the print on the back, so you can put it into the frame. And there, with a little bit of, and there you have a mounted and backed print.